Thank you and welcome everyone to my favorite places in Canada. And let me just get this kicked off. And as you know, for nearly 40% of our work since I started this career has been done in Canada, including my very start of this career. And so in this journey, we'll be heading across Canada, featuring 10 of my very favorite places. And no offense to Manitoba, but it's the one province I really haven't worked in, although I've been to Winnipeg on several occasions. And so I want to start with the runners up because this was really excruciating to try to figure out what 10 places I would put as my very best. But I started with a list of like 40 or 50 and pared it down. So I thought I'd run through pretty quickly the runners up to this effort. And on this list, there in no particular order, is Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia. It has an amazing, well-preserved history, along with a beautiful downtown with great shops, galleries, and eateries. It's ultra walkable, intimate, and has a stunning waterfront, just beautiful. And then here is Banff, Alberta. You know, it's the primary city to Banff National Park and the Canadian Rockies. It is just stunning. But one of the reasons it's not on my very best of list is because it has a lot of chain stores and chain restaurants, and we could get all that closer to home. And it's really sad because when I first fell in love with Banff way back in high school days, it was an arts community, and I was going to go to the Banff School of Fine Arts. That was my whole dream. Next on the list is Bracebridge, Ontario. We had the pleasure of working in Bracebridge, which is the heart of Muskoka area and Canada's cottage country. You know, it's known for its waterfalls. It has a stunning downtown and a great mix of shops, restaurants, and great people. You know, next on the list is Caraquet, New Brunswick. Once again, it's a beautiful town, and I was asked to speak there. And what's interesting is while New Brunswick is the bilingual province, it is the one place I've spoken around the world where I actually had to have an interpreter. So I've always got a kick out of that, but a beautiful city. You know, next is Dawson City up in the Yukon. Yes, I'm even getting up north. You know, no matter, even though it is so remote, I love their downtown and the setting. Just look at the color in what would otherwise be a rather drab environment, like in a lot of northern towns in Canada. You know, I'll be traveling through there this next year, and I can't wait to visit Dawson City. You know, Halls Harbor in Nova Scotia. I just love this place. It's on the Bay of Fundy, which has the highest tides in the world. And what's interesting is when you go there, you'll see boats actually sitting in the mud in the harbor you see in this picture. And what's really cool is lobster boats will come in. They will unload the lobster. You can actually watch them doing this. They will actually go into, some of the lobsters in an aquarium, and you pick the lobster you want. They take it out. They put it in like a dishpan. You carry the dishpan back to the chef, and then you go sit at your table, and 10 minutes later, you have lobster that's that fresh out of the ocean. I mean, just an amazing experience. Kimberley, British Columbia. You'll see this. This is such a great Bavarian themed town. But when I was last there, it had lost a little bit of its European charm, but it's still very pedestrian, beautiful, pedestrian friendly and beautiful. And obviously a visitor oriented town. You know, Saint-Sauveur in Quebec. You know, I haven't been here in a long time, but it's located in the Laurentian Mountains, about 60 kilometers north of Montreal. You know, it's a beautiful European style resort town. It's got water parks and just about everything. And I went there when I was working in Mont Tremblant, a very well-known ski village, which is about a 45-minute drive away. You know, St. Andrews, and here we go. This is, has a great downtown in St. Sauveur. And so just fantastic shops. How wonderful is that? You know, next is St. Andrews by the Sea in New Brunswick. It's an oceanfront village, gorgeous town. It's a national historic site, the whole downtown. That was founded in the 1700s with a central market square and classic architecture. Water Street is full of great shops, eateries, and lodging facilities. and the village is home to the much heralded Algonquin resort that is there. St. Jacobs, Ontario is also a runner-up. This is not very far from one of my favorite towns that did make it into the top 10 list. Largely a Mennonite community. They do a great job telling the Mennonite story. And these industrious people have developed a wide array of experiences from theater to great, great shops. I happened to be there during the Holiday City nearby in Wellington County and took a few minutes to go down there. And what they've done is just amazing. It really is a great downtown, and obviously very popular people in the Toronto and the Ontario area. You know, Trinity, Newfoundland, and Labrador. I mean, look at the population at some of these little towns and look at the color. Can you tell? I'm telling you what things I think make it great. It's just the color. It is what it is. I love the little salt box houses, the fishing rooms, and you can stay in accommodations in historic buildings there. Just fabulous. I mean, how cool is this? It is so authentic. It is what it is. And this is the way it's been for hundreds of years. The seafood is downright amazing here. It's home to one of the province's most popular seaside trails. And it has amazing culture, including live theater and amazing artisans. The population's 170. Twillingate, also in Newfoundland and Labrador. Like Trinity, Twillingate is another great town I fell in love with. If you're there in June or early July, you'll see icebergs floating by. It's known as Iceberg Alley as you get the spring breakup and icebergs start heading south and gradually melting. You know, I mean, it's a great town with stunning scenery, colorful houses, and some epic oceanfront trails. You know, Ucluelet, you know, it took me years to learn how to pronounce Ucluelet, and so Ucluelet. I have to keep saying it over and over so I get it right. But this is located on the western shore of Vancouver Island. It's not that far from Tofino. And by the way, Ucluelet means people of the safe harbor. And once again, it's got some amazing oceanfront. It's amazing scenic. It's a little less touristy than Tofino. It's a great place for whale watching, wildlife viewing, and it also has a great downtown and harbor area. You know, Whistler Resort is where I began my career, and it was just a fledgling, kind of a half-failed, half-successful. When I was working there, it was like 869 people lived there. You know, this place is very close to my heart. It would have made my best of list, except for the fact that Whistler was manufactured. You know, we made it up, but it is a great town for every other town to emulate. It's pedestrian friendly. It's got a great mix of shops, and one thing that's great, it shows you the power of a downtown. Whistler Village actually does more business in the summer than it does in the winter, even though it is a ski village. Waskesiu, Saskatchewan, located in Prince Albert National Park. This summer resort town is located on the shores of Lake Waskesiu and about a 2.5-hour drive north of Saskatoon. It has a great mix of accommodation, some good dining, and it's one of the most beautiful areas in Saskatchewan. And it's just fantastic. Just the photography there alone is stunning. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. This is, made famous during the Prohibition with speakeasies. This is a town where Al Capone set up underground tunnels for gangsters and rum runners. It's always been the rebel child of Canada. Located along the Trans-Canada Highway, Moose Jaw is a great downtown. You see where I'm going with all of this? Trolley tours, and you've got to do one of the underground tours while you're there. Prince Edward Island, I didn't think I'd put an entire province in here, but this is an island that's about 139 miles long. What is that, 220 kilometers or so, and a few miles wide, or about 30 kilometers wide on average. I don't know I've ever been in a location that made me feel so peaceful and relaxed. Maybe that's why they call it the Peaceful Island. It's really a magical place, and it's on my list to spend some time there within the next couple of years. Of course, Charlottetown has a population of about 36,000. It is the heart and soul of PEI, but with all the urban amenities, very intimate small town feeling or setting. There are so many neat little coastal towns there, it's hard to pick one. But of course, what this is most famous for is you got it for Anne of Green Gables, taking place in Avonlea and Cavendish. And Cavendish actually exists, but during the summer, they actually do reenactments of stories from that series of books. Just fantastic. And Wolfville, Nova Scotia is a college town located in the beautiful Annapolis Valley, which is now Nova Scotia's wine region. It also made the list. It's where I've used these photos in so many places about doing sidewalk cafe dining and routing pedestrians around, and has great cafes, stunning inns and B&Bs that are just amazing, a great summer farmers market, and it just has a great vibe, as you would expect in a beautiful downtown like this. St. John's, Newfoundland is one of the bigger cities on this list, if you can call it big, but it comes to my very favorites. I only included smaller cities except one, but St. John's has done such an amazing job with their downtown. It's super vibrant, and it's a joy to spend time there. And oh, by the way, this was, fantastic. And the other bigger city that is really part of a city is Old Town, Quebec, up on the hill. It's as European as they come, often heralded, but debated as the oldest city in Canada. Old Town is flat out beautiful, incredible architecture, 5-star dining and accommodations. This has made it one of Canada's best destinations. And of course, one of the most beautiful cities in all of Canada is Montreal. It's one of the most beautiful cities on the planet, and that's year round. And if I would have included more large cities, I included one, this would have made the list. And with that, let's talk about a few up and coming destinations. I'm getting there with those top 10. And I got to tell you, one of them is in Drumheller, Alberta. This is dinosaur capital of the world right here. And their downtown is really, really coming along. Their mayor, Heather, there has done an amazing job really getting this city in the downtown focus. They got a plaza there in the works. But look at that dinosaur. You can actually go up and stand in his mouth. It's pretty incredible. And of course, they're next to the Badlands of Alberta there, just a few minutes away. So it is really an up and coming one. Another one is Squamish, British Columbia. When I was working in Whistler Resort, we wouldn't even stay in Squamish. It was miners, it was timber guys, it was as redneck as it could be. And now it is the youngest city in Canada and really fast growing. I mean, Squamish is amazing. It's kind of between North Vancouver and Whistler there. And by the way, they also have one of the best tourism websites on the planet. So congratulations to Squamish, which is hardwired for adventure. And another up and coming place is Fergus, Ontario. This is close to one of my very favorite towns. And this town is very, very Scottish. It's architecture and everything. And as it works on its downtown, it could easily make this list. And so with that, let's dig into 10 of my favorite places in Canada. These are in order as close as I could. So we'll start with number 10 and end with number 1. And I got to tell you that each one of these was totally unique to the other. So it was really hard to actually put them in this order. But let's get going with number 10, Rosebud, Alberta. Look, and I'll tell you the population shortly, but this is located out in Alberta Prairie. It's a little over an hour's drive from Calgary and not far from Drumheller. It's one of the most amazing small towns I've ever spent time in. And I'll get you the population at the end of this, but it is an amazing arts town in the prairie. And when you're there, you can stop and shop at Backstage Gifts or Rosehip Gifts, or you could go to Kith and Kin, and there's other galleries there. I mean, this is just such an amazing town. You might have lunch at the Thorny Rose Cafe right there, or you might even come there when they do their annual Rosebud Music Festival. You know, you can see right there on the stage where it says, get your 15 minutes of fame. When I go there, I always stay at the Rosebud Cottage Country Inn, with Ken and Betty Jansen actually own it and run it. And this is your view when you get up in the mornings. I mean, this place is just beautiful. And even at the Country Inn there, they do an amazing job of selling like local wares like these. This is right there in this Country Inn. And of course, they're famous for their pies. But the highlight of Rosebud is probably the Rosebud Center of the Arts. And remember, this is a pretty small town, and this place is just flat out amazing. But this is what really puts it on the map. That and the Opera House where Rosebud Theater performs. What's really cool about Rosebud is you can go there, you go into the Mercantile, you pick up your pre-ordered tickets, and then you go right inside for dinner right there. And it's a buffet dinner. And it's a beautiful, beautiful setting. And they will have students from the art school there actually perform live music. And then from once you're done with dinner, you go right over to the theater, which is right across the street, basically. This is a set of on Golden Pond, and their theater runs April through December, 140 days a year, pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID. But they do backstage tours, they do artistic director talkback. And I'm telling you, this is not small town community theater. This rivals Broadway. It is that good. And it is just amazing. It is just such a great town. So welcome to Rosebud, Alberta. The population of this town is 88. How do you like that? They raised over $1 million for the performing arts there. And I love this sign. So many people come to the middle of nowhere that it becomes somewhere. And they host about 35,000 dinner and theater tickets every year. How cool is that? And number 9 on the list is this one. Are you ready? This is Elora, Ontario. Population is about 7,800 there. I mean, it is just a fantastic downtown here. It's one of those towns you need to spend a couple of days in exploring it and the surrounding countryside. It's one of the most beautiful downtowns in Ontario, and that's saying a lot considering the size of the province and a ton of competition. You know, when I was there, we had lunch at the Elora Brewing Company in a fantastic setting. I mean, look at this place. This place is just so cool. And I was there once again during the holidays working in Wellington County where this is located. And they have just some beautiful, look at the decorations outside. I love curb appeal. And even during the winter months, the shops are alive with shoppers coming from everywhere and a ton of holiday cheer. You know, every shop features high quality clothing, art, home accents, and gifts. As a matter of fact, the downtown is the primary draw. This used to be a mill town until it reinvented itself. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that, the old mill has been transferred into an amazing lodging, 5-star dining, and an event venue overlooking the falls and the river there. And by the way, if you want to book a wedding or a reception there, get in line. This is as good as it gets. And while you're in, it's just a beautiful city in a beautiful area. And while you're in Wellington County, this area, there's some other great towns to visit. I took this and I gave them a bad time about Mount Forest being high, healthy, and happy. And that was before Canada legalized cannabis. You know, it's actually their elevation. But there's so many other great towns that I would say while you're in the area, you've got to visit some of these other little towns. There's some great shops in Arthur, in Rockwood. I mean, it's just great. And number 8 on our list. Are you ready? Oh, and by the way, before I get to number 8, even Erin there could have made this list. It's another great town in Wellington County. So now let's get down to number 8 on the list. And this is the Bruce Peninsula of Ontario. You know, located about 3 hours from the Toronto area, it's time to visit the western shore of the famous Bruce Peninsula. But we're not going to do everything you see right there on this map. We're going to zoom in and talk about some of these little towns that are along the coastline, which really make up Bruce County, but we call this all the Bruce community. And I've been there. Most of my work was there during the winter months. But this place is so fantastic because it has such a variety. It's worth spending some time there. And I think the tip up there of Tobermory is just absolutely phenomenal. But let's take this little trip, and we might start in these little towns of Ripley, Lucknow, Mildmay, and Teeswater. The local population of all 4 of these towns is about 4,000 people. I mean, it's just pure and simple farm country. It's a great way on your way out to the coast to get something to eat, something to take with you. It's just fantastic. And what I love is when you leave the big metropolitan areas of all of London and, you know, the Toronto area where most of Canada lives in Southern Ontario, you get out there and you just have this decompression as you start entering these little towns. I mean, it's just this change of scenery and everything on your way out to the coast. They have great little shops, great little eaters, a great way to pick up things on your way out to the coast. You know, I got to tell you that then we come to Kincardine. This could have been on my favorite list all by itself. It is 100% Scottish. The population there is about 11,000, you know, and this is your first lakeside, you know, waterfront community and one of my favorite towns in Ontario. I love everything they do. Get in touch with your inner Scotsman. You know, it's not unusual to see people wearing kilts there. Kincardine is home to the Scottish Pipe Band that's been performing since 1948, and it performs regularly during the summer months every Saturday night. And I love I love this. You know, think what you will, but that's the pipe band for you. But every time I'm in Kincardine, I want to purchase a kilt and wear it. It's on my list of things I got to do sometime. I mean, it's amazing. It's got a beautiful downtown. You can see why these things are making my list. You know, while Bruce Peninsula is a popular summer destination, Kincardine is very much a year-round destination with a great downtown architecturally. You know, it's got great shops and great eateries. And we didn't even talk about the waterfront, which is actually really beautiful as well. You know, next up, we might go to Port Elgin, you know, where it's find your fun. This is a little more high energy of all the towns. Population there just under 8,000. They've got the Saugeen Rail Trail right there. And so we're heading up the coast now. It's all about recreation here. You know, whether you're out there stand-up paddle boarding or surfing when the tides get rough or when the winds get rough, but it's also got volleyball on the beach. And I want to thank Explore the Bruce because I took a lot of photos from their website for this because most of mine were in the winter. And so they have great collection. If you go Explore the Bruce, that website, you'll find a lot of this there. But I mean, just if you want to recreate, this is a great place. This is the North Shore Trail right there, but this is a little more high energy. You know, Kincardine is very much Scottish. This is a little more high energy. But when you're done doing all that recreation, they have some fantastic eateries like this one, Ristorante Rosina. You know, and they've got stuff for every taste and every budget. They have great shops as well, even in the winter months. You know, but I mean, it's just like being, you know, it's just a great place. Now, this you're seeing is in Southampton. You know, I would say it's like being in the Hamptons without breaking the bank. I've always, to me, it's always been quiet. It's more scenic. It's romantic. It's peaceful. I mean, some of their B&Bs are very romantic. And I've always thought it seems to be just that kind of a romantic destination, a little bit different than Port Elgin. Everybody has their niche that they want to fit in, it's just great. It's got a great downtown. It's got upscale shops, particularly for women, which do most of the spending. It's got beautiful B&Bs. And while you're there, you've got to go into Outlaw Brew Company. How cool is this? And while you're in Southampton, like some of the other places, you've got to walk the Southampton Boardwalk. It's just beautiful. And if we head up the beach, you're going to come to the famous Sauble Beach. During the summer months, this becomes Ontario's beachfront town. It's got a kind of a retro mid-century vibe, and you simply can't have any more fun than you'll have here on their beaches. And the population about 2,000. I don't know how many people are there in the winter. It pretty much shuts down during those months, but it's got just a fantastic beachside destination. By the way, this photo was taken during COVID when everybody was escaping the big cities and heading out to the beach and fresh air. But it is an amazing place. Next up on our list heading up is Wiarton. This is kind of the base camp. It's in the middle of the peninsula. It's a great place to set up camp. And then you could explore north, south, east, west, and this is Wiarton Willie there, which they're famous for. It's the local groundhog that actually is alive and does come out every Groundhog Day, February 2nd, to forecast the upcoming weather and to celebrate the annual Wiarton Willie Festival. Just a great town. But if you want to explore from there, you got to head out to Craig's Caves. There's a lot of caves in the area. And this is on my list of when I get back there of something I need to do. And that's half a day exploring all by itself, if not a full day. And then when you come back, you can go shopping in Wiarton. And it's got every type of accommodation. It's got all the provisioning you'll need as you explore the peninsula and a great downtown to boot. And it's just great. Then if we keep heading up a little north, you come to Lion's Head. This is a great little town. It's got rugged beauty there. The population is only 600. It's just another serene setting with beautiful scenery. And if there's ever a place for dark skies, my gosh, I'd head here. Once you get out of those bright lights of Toronto and the metropolitan area and even get north of Owen Sound out there, the skies get darker and darker. It's a great stargazing destination, as is most of the peninsula. But in Lion's Head, they got a sweet lighthouse. I just love it there. It's just a great place to totally unwind, get away from the hectic urban lifestyle. And if you want a little bit of fun there, go bouldering. There's some great bouldering in Lion's Head or nearby there, like you can see the girl doing right here in this photograph. And you're bouldering in one of the most scenic spots in all of Ontario. And finally, we get up to the very north end of Tobermory. This is like the reward at the end of these several days that you're exploring this peninsula. And with dozens of shipwrecks there to explore for both scuba diver and even boaters. These are amazing. The population has now grown to 4,000. It's amazing how fast this place is growing. But a couple of things that make Tobermory worth the special trip is, of course, it is at the Bruce Peninsula National Park. This is the grotto there. Amazing, amazing, beautiful place. While you're there, of course, you got to head out to Flower Pot Island and Fathom 5 National Marine Park. And, it's just fantastic. Even, I love this, it's Little Tub Harbor. How cute is that? And it is a highlight. Besides all the natural attraction, the town is charming with great eateries, array of lodging options, and a great place to get out on the water. I mean, the Bruce Peninsula is flat out amazing. And the people there that we've worked with have been absolutely a treasure to work with after all these years. And now to number 7 on the list. We are heading over to I shouldn't say the other side of the province, but a little bit to the eastern side, to Niagara on the lake. The population there is under 20,000 there, and it is just beautiful. Here, you can catch a buggy ride past the Prince of Wales Hotel and through downtown. And this might be one of the most beautiful towns in all of Canada. And this is what Elora, I said, it's one of them, but this one probably takes the cake. And probably nobody is surprised at this, if you're from Ontario, that this is on our list. I mean, just everything about it is what makes these towns great. They are pedestrian friendly. I'm telling you why they made the list. Pedestrian friendly, beautiful landscaping, incredible architecture. I mean, it's got incredible shops all up and down Queen Street here. It's got wonderful restaurants. This is one of those where the downtown is the main attraction. I mean, you could spend a couple of days here easily. And I mean, this is Queen Street right here. Just look at the landscaping, the beautification. It's almost impossible to take a bad photograph in Niagara on the lake. I mean, people don't realize the power that beautification and street trees make. I'd love to see more towns do this. But no wonder it wins the award for the best, most beautiful town in Ontario and one of the top 2 in Canada. And I'm going to get to the other one coming up here. And it's just amazing. And by the way, you don't want to just spend time downtown. You can go out on the riverfront promenade. This is where the Niagara River empties into Lake Ontario. And it's just a beautiful walk. I mean, what can you say? And while you're there, you also got to visit Fort George National Historic Site. Well, there are workers there in period dress. You actually live the experience as it was more than 200 years ago. Now, you might think, well, yeah, that looks really pretty in the summer. But excuse me, guess what? It looks just as gorgeous in the winter. This is just a beautiful, beautiful downtown and very, very peaceful. While you're in the area, of course, you might want to head over to St. Catharines. It's another beautiful city in this area. And guess what else? Yes, it's about a 30-minute drive from the incredible Niagara Falls. And I've always said the view is so much better on the Canadian side than it is on the New York side, because you get to see this in its full glory. So there you go, Niagara on the Lake. Number 6 on this list are the Selkirk Mountains of British Columbia. And this is the town of Nelson, BC. This is famous. It was made famous for the filming of Roxanne, the movie starring Steve Martin and Daryl Hannah. But you can also get a good amount of exercise walking the streets in Nelson, because it's pretty steep and built right on a hillside. But the Kootenays Rockies and the Selkirk Mountains are kind of the western side of the Rocky Mountains. But it sits right there on the shores of Kootenay Lake. Nelson is an incredible town. It's famous for Baker Street, which is full of live music, great restaurants, great mix of retail shops. It's also a very young, vibrant city. During the summer, you'll see a dozen cafes where they'll get rid of cars in their main street to do these sidewalk cafes like you're seeing in this photo. I mean, this downtown is about people, not cars. And I wish everybody would take that as another reason these places have made my list. They've got a great farmers market every week. They got music everywhere. You can go there in the middle of the winter. This is a mountain town, and you'll see people out there, street buskers and musicians playing guitars. It's got all the great vibes you'd want to find anywhere in British Columbia. And when I'm talking about the Selkirk Mountains in this whole area, there's also great towns like this is Nakusp. And you got to go to Crawford Bay. Crawford Bay has like 14 artisans. I don't know how many people live there, maybe 100 or so. But they've got, here's the Woven Broom Company, and here's, you got glass companies and forges. I mean, it's fantastic. and guess what this place is most famous for of the Kootenay Rockies are the hot springs. I took this British Columbia magazine a number of years ago, but it still holds true today, where this place is famous for its hot springs, like the Halcyon Hot Springs, the Lucier Hot Springs, the Nakusp Hot Springs while you're in Nakusp, the Fairmont Hot Springs. These places are amazing. And then when you're done soaking in the warm water, Radium Hot Springs, then you can go into these towns, which are just fantastic. So this is the Selkirk Mountains, or the Kootenays of British Columbia, kind of on the eastern side before you head up into the Rockies. And number 5 on this list are the Canadian Rockies, and mainly on the Alberta side. Sorry, British Columbia. The provincial line goes right down the middle of the mountains. And what's fantastic about this area, and if I go back to that, just look at that photo. That's in Waterton. That's a Prince of Wales hotel. But this is the town of Waterton. It is at Waterton Lakes National Park, which, by the way, is just north of Glacier National Park in the state. Population there is about 105 people. And of course, there's the iconic picture everybody's seen of the Prince of Wales Hotel. And by the way, if you go there and have dinner in the dining room, these are your views. I mean, this place is stunning. But the reason it makes my list is there's a lot of stunning beauty everywhere in Canada, east and west and central. But this downtown is flat out amazing. Rather than having a lot of concrete sidewalks, they're paver stones, which is great for letting rain go through them or snow melt, but a great array of shops. Once again, I love towns with street trees, very, very pedestrian friendly, and this town, for being at a national park, does really, really well. Great little shops, great eateries. I mean, you can rent a bike and go around. And without even getting in your car, you could walk to beautiful trails with creeks and waterfalls just about everywhere. I mean, it is a stunning town. And while you're there in Waterton, I would absolutely take a cruise out on the lake. And one thing I noticed, we were staying there, and when we walked out of our little cabin, we would walk out and there'd be deer. We're practically stepping over the deer. But within a walk or even 5-minute drive of Waterton, I mean, there's not a day goes by that you won't see wildlife like this or like this in the area. When we were there, it was late spring and the white-tailed deer, she'd just given birth to a couple of calves. I mean, this place is just absolutely spectacular. So that's at the southern end of the Canadian Rockies, close to the American border. But if we head up north, there's lots of towns up there, Pincher Creek on up. But my other favorite town is Canmore, Alberta. I think this is the best downtown in Western Canada. Population there is about 14,000. This was a mining town until that was the 1988 Calgary Olympics. They hosted a lot out in Canmore. And look at the setting of this town. I mean, and I have said publicly, Canmore's clean Banff's clock, because their downtown is so fantastic. I mean, they've got an amazing, what a backdrop to any downtown, but they have absolutely amazing, amazing shops throughout their downtown. And what I like about them, they've done a good job limiting chain stores or franchise. I think there's a Subway there, but other than that, there's like Rocky Mountain Soap Company, but there's only like 6 of those, and it's a Western Canada store. So they haven't sold their soul, and no offense to Banff, that's the reason I choose Canmore. I mean, it is just amazing in every regard. This town works very hard to stay true to its roots, without getting gentrified. I love the shops with the cafes, the sidewalk cafes up and down the street during the summer months. Some of these even are open in the winter months. They put out the heaters like we did in Whistler Resort. We put out propane heaters so we enjoy the snow in the winter. I mean, just look at this downtown. I wish every downtown could look like Canmore and take lessons from Canmore. It's a great foodie destination for sure. You know, I love things like the dog dish out there. It just makes you feel comfortable. It's like being at home. And it's just flat out amazing. You know, it's, you know, as a matter of fact, a lot of people like surgeons and stuff that worked in Calgary now live in Canmore, and they're bringing their practices out there. So for great healthcare, now you can head to Canmore, not just Calgary. You know, and when we assessed Canmore, I couldn't find very many things they needed to work on. We had a few, but there weren't very many. It is just that good. They just do an amazing job, and right down to the architecture with the whole mountain theme, you know, and with a backdrop like this, I mean, what can you say? But even the architecture with the wood and the beams and everything are just amazing. And they're really strict about this because it really is who they are, and they don't want to lose sight of that. You know, and even the parks right in downtown are awesome, including like this one, right? You know, people see people out there in the middle of the winter wearing all their ski gear, warming up and exercising in this year round. But they also have a fantastic farmers market. It's got, I mean, it's almost like a juried art show with incredible artisans and great food. No wonder Canmore is one of the healthiest cities in Canada. I mean, and I got to tell you, the Canadian Rockies are just spectacular in every regard. If you're there, go up to Lake Louise, go to Jasper, another great town. And it's just one of the most beautiful places on earth. So number 4 on our list, and this would take us clear across Canada to the Gros Morne region of Newfoundland and Labrador. See the people standing on that rock? That's on my bucket list to do. And it's not easy getting to that site. But if we go look at a part of Newfoundland right here, that area that you see right there, that western shore, it's untamed, it is wild, and it is unbelievable. And there's so many great little teeny towns there that, and I'm just going to mention a couple of them. And one of them is Woody Point. I love this little town. It's a fantastic arts village, both performing arts and visual arts. And look at the population, 282 people. You know, I don't know if it's still 282, but it's right down to the person. And everybody knows everybody there. I mean, it is just fantastic. They even say our downtown, and they put in parentheses because it's just barely a downtown. But they do have these little artisan things right here, little quaint shops, eateries. And these are among the friendliest people you'll ever meet. And when a tourist comes to town, they treat you like royalty. I mean, just look at these. Everything is handmade, even the signs, you know, hunky-dory folk art and things. How awesome is that? And while you're there, you might catch a person singing, a person doing demonstration art. It's just fantastic. And it is just really, really great. While there, you can go to Bombay Lighthouse, which is also beautiful trail to this. I mean, it's at Woody Point, you know, and this is just amazing. And while you're there, you might as well go into the Gros Morne Discovery Center, which is right there. The views from this Discovery Center are amazing. So much so they even have chairs in it where you can sit there and just take in the view while you're at the Discovery Center. Hopefully all these things are going to start to open back up. And if Canada starts to open its borders. But I mean, it's just fantastic. And then the other little town I want to mention is Cowhead. With a name like that, you know it's got to be good. and it's just a coastal little fishing village. It never was meant to be a big tourist town. Population here is about 400. It's got an amazing coastline. And if you go hiking up towards one of their lighthouses, this is their washrooms. Have I said enough about color? I just love things like this. But I got to tell you, one of the highlight is going there. And Jane, my wife, and I were there, and we saw this little place that says Back Cove Cafe and Craft Shop, and they have moose burgers. We'd never had a moose burger. So we walk in, and the woman that owns the shop, she said, well, this is, and she did not want me to take her picture. I'll show you in a minute. She goes, by the way, the moose that you're having for lunch is one she bagged like 3 or 4 days below. She outdid her husband. She bagged she had like 700 pounds of meat. So not only is she the hunter, she was also the butcher, and now she is the chef. And we had incredible moose burgers there. I mean, it's so cool when you actually get to meet the locals. The scenery there is absolutely fantastic. And while you're in the Gros Morne area, you've got to go to Arches Provincial Park. I couldn't help but climb up onto the arches right here to get my shot taken. And while you're there, you've got to go do the Tablelands Boardwalk, which is in Gros Morne. It is topography like I've never seen before in my life. There's even an audio tour you can listen to as you're walking through the boardwalks. But once again, unbelievable. And number 3 on this list is, yes, back to the West Coast, Victoria. I grew up not far from Victoria in the San Juan Islands. This is the one bigger city I did put on the list. And for good reason. I mean, that's the Empress Hotel on the left there, which serves afternoon tea pretty much every day, all year round. It is just a fantastic, and of course, it is the capital of British Columbia. That's the Parliament building there. And even that at night, if I would have had more time, I would have put night photos of that, the way they have it lit up. They've got the undersea gardens there. I mean, and then when you go into downtown, it is just amazing, the architecture and the array of great shops and eateries. And if you want some nightlife, head over to Bastion Square, a site of old Fort Victoria. It's home to some of the best restaurant, pubs, and cafes in all of Victoria. Live music there. I mean, it is fantastic. While you're there, take the little harbor ferry. It'll show you across the harbor and give you little tours of it. It's amazing. Thunderbird Park. And if you're in Victoria, you got to catch a shuttle or rent a car or whatever and head up to Bouchard Gardens, world class. So that's Victoria. And on to number 2 on this list. And here we go. Back over to Atlantic Canada and Cape Breton Island. This is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Now, if you're not familiar, here is a map of Nova Scotia. There is where Halifax is, and there is Cape Breton Island, which is quite famous for the Cabot Trail. Now, the Cabot Trail isn't as big as what you see on the screen. It includes the Cayley Trail. If it was me, I would have the Cabot Trail be this whole thing. Instead, it cuts across where you see that little line, mid-Cabot Trail. That upper portion is actually the Cabot Trail. The lower portion is really the Cayley Trail. I think you got to do both. This is one of the top 10 scenic drives in the world. I'm going to talk about Judique, Mabou, Inverness, Cheticam, Ingonish, all these artists. Bedeque is kind of the gateway onto it. Over to Sydney, which is on Cape Breton, but off of the Cabot Trail, and even Louisburg. This is incredible, incredible destination, and it is world famous. I could tell you a whole story about these signs. but it is just absolutely amazing. You can see that road there. And by the way, it takes a full day to drive around Cabot Trail. So I see people in Sydney getting off cruise ships and said, you know, we've got an hour to spare. Can we do the Cabot Trail and go into Halifax? They don't realize it's like an 8-hour drive or 6-hour drive from Halifax. It is, but it is amazing. And where this picture was taken is along the Skyline Trail. I mean, this is one of the most breathtaking trails I've ever seen in my life, and you've got to do it. It is the most spectacular view of all of Western Canada. I mean, it's beyond spectacular. And a lot of times you'll see whales out there during the summer months. But while you're on the Cabot Trail, you've got to visit the Glenora Distillery. Yeah, you can do some tasting, and but not too much. We got a lot of driving to do. But all around the Cabot Trail are amazing artisans, and they're not in one place. You'll just drive around and you'll see a glass blowing shop, or you'll see Piper Pewter. What a great shop this is. I mean, getting lunch at the Dancing Goat near Inverness is some of the best sandwiches you'll ever meet, with the bread hot out of the oven. Just incredible. You know, if you're there, stay at the the Celtic Lodge, which is in Cape Breton Highlands National Park. When you're there, you've got to eat at the Purple Thistle. I mean, this is the dining room, historic and flat out amazing. It is just incredible. And by the way, you can't just drive the Cabot Trail one way. You've got to go both directions. It's completely different. You can spend 3 or 4 or a week here, and that's just on the Cabot Trail. And then you've got to get over to Sydney. But if you're in Bedeque, you got to visit the Alexander Graham Bell National Historic. Yes, the telephone was invented by a Canadian, not an American. And this is where he's from. I mean, Bedeque is fantastic. When we were there, we spent some time at a Cayley. You can see how it's spelled there and how it's pronounced. Cayley. You know, and Cayleys are these little jam sessions of Celtic musicians, you know, where they're on guitar and on the fiddle. If you've ever heard of Natalie McMaster, she's from Cape Breton Island. And you can attend these all over the island. And then just look at the shoreline around the Cabot Trail. World class in just every single regard. And you can even stop at the Whale Interpretive Center and they'll show you where you can spot the whales. But if you have a motorcycle, this would be just epic for anybody with a motorcycle going the Cabot Trail, particularly if you can get some good weather. But, you know, at dusk and dawn, you'll see, yes, this was taken along the Cabot Trail, and we had one walk right in front of our car. But just absolutely incredible. And if you got a chance, head out to Meat Cove. Just look it up. It's got a great seafood chowder up there. And it is just these little cabins. There's nothing really there, but it's just epic views once again. Now, while you're on Cape Breton Island, you got to go over to the Fortress of Louisburg, which is fantastic. You can even have lunch there, and they serve you the same meals they served a couple hundred years ago. And they have people in reenacting the times and everything. So you really get into how they live. And when you're there, you got to go into Sydney. If nothing else, go down to where the cruise ships hopefully will be coming back. But right here for the largest fiddle on the planet. You know, and I mean, look at, there's Jane, and granted, she's small, but she's not that small. And when you're in Sydney, they've got a great downtown, really up and coming. It's a great place to get lots of things for the taste of Cape Breton Island and local gifts. Over in Inverness, they've got a world-class in Inverness, you can attend a harness racing event or the Cabot Links, which people come from all over the world to play. And then finally, Mabou. Mabou is a fantastic place. And if you're ever there, I mean, what incredible views there. And if you're there, you've got to go to the Red Shoe Pub. Great food, great music, great art. I mean, this is just fantastic. And as you head down the Cayley Trail to Judique, you know, you've got to stop at the Celtic Music Interpretive Center. It is, once again, you can go have lunch there and listen to live musicians. You can even go through the Interpretive Center and they've got displays where you can learn how to step dance. And step dancing is way tougher than I thought. And you see Jane here trying it out, but you can also grab a fiddle and just try to play one note. Now, how these people can do step dancing and fiddling at the same time boggles my mind, and going here really gave me a new insight to what it really takes to do that. Cape Breton Island, absolutely fantastic. And finally, now to number one on my list. And we're staying in Nova Scotia. And this is the Bluenose Coast. And let me explain where this is. If we go back, you can see Halifax, that lower area. And if you drive like an hour, hour and a half, I can't even remember now, into the Blue Coast area, this is where it's at. This area of Nova Scotia is just absolutely fantastic, not just for the scenery, but for its towns. I mean, from Peggy's Cove to Hubbard's to, Chester to Mahone Bay to Lunenburg. I mean, the Blue Rocks and down to La Have and Petite Riviere. I mean, it is just epic. This is my favorite place in North America, hands down. And it's hard for me to say that because there's so many great places. But if we start in Peggy's Cove, I mean, it is the iconic working class fishing village. The population of Peggy's Cove is 40. Yet it is so great. It is a working fishing village. And while you're there, you can get coffee. You can go into one of several little artisan shops. Once again, I just love the color. And even when you're there, they got one of the most iconic, cutest churches I've ever seen. And the entire terrain is these granite boulders and everything. But you know what Peggy's Cove is most famous for? Is, yes, the Peggy's Cove Lighthouse. This is a world-renowned lighthouse that is on a rock outcropping like I've never seen. I mean, this thing, I couldn't believe how many photos I was taking when I was there. Just absolutely stunning. But if we head from Peggy's Cove and start heading around the coastline, we'll come to Hubbard's. When we're there, we like staying at the Rosewood cottages. See that gazebo down there in the water? That was in our front yard. The cottage we're in is just right behind that. Just spectacular. And it's a great little resort town right there. Population of Hubbard's is about 400. While you're there, you've got to eat at the Trellis Cafe or go next door to the Antiques. I mean, just phenomenal. Just really, really great. Next up, when you're going around, is the town of Chester. It's a great waterfront arts town, and population is about 10,000 here, but you can go in there, go to their visitor center, get a bike, rent a kayak. The kayaking along the Bluenose Coast has got to be probably among the best in the world. It's got a mix of great shops, great eateries. One of the best restaurants we ever ate at was right there in Chester. And they even have a playhouse there. When we were there, we went into right here and bought pottery from Jim Smith, the potter there. And he actually tells you how he makes his pieces. And by the way, when people meet the artist, they're 4 times more likely to buy the art. So that's a pretty good trick, and the places to eat there are amazing. And then if we keep going, I'm skipping over one little town, but this is Lunenburg. Once again, it is another World Heritage Site in Canada. And Lunenburg, of course, is famous. It was a shipbuilding, a destination at one point. Its population is about 2,300. And once again, it's built on a hillside. And it is, well, have I said the word amazing enough? So that's what happens when you do your very best. Every place is amazing. Every place is epic. Every place is outstanding. It's got great shops, great restaurants. I mean, this one overlooks the whole bay and the harbor. And when you're there, they've got a fantastic museum, shipbuilding museum, and you can go on a sailboat here and actually go out and tour the harbor. This is looking across the bay at their golf course, and it's just great. Just Lunenburg is fantastic. But then you can go out to little places like the Blue Rocks. I mean, the population here, it's never been really a tourist town. Population is about 30, but you can just see these dories, the fishing boats that are out there. I mean, it is just so iconic, Atlantic Canada, and particularly Nova Scotia, with the little cabins overlooking the piers, fishing houses. And while you're at the Blue Rocks, you got to go into Lighthouse Treasures and Collectibles, and then head down to La Have, where they've got the Marine Museum, which is just absolutely great. Another artisan village. The whole Bluenose coast is just well known for its arts. Population, I think, is about 150. It was hard to get a real number there, but you've got to go to the La Have Bakery. If you notice, I'm mentioning anchor tenants. Always promote your anchor tenants. This bakery is phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, we use coffee mugs that we bought right here at Westcote Bell Pottery. They're with us, and this is coming to you from Montana. I mean, just absolutely stunning. While you're there, you can take the La Have ferry across the river there. And you can even head down to Petite Riviere, which has a couple of my favorites, which is the Petite Riviere Vineyards, a great winery right there. And I don't know, I think 200 people or so live in this little area, but the winery is worth making the trip for. I love Little Best Coast coffee. I mean, it's just so darling. I love this place. And one of my favorite galleries anywhere is the Painted Salt Box Gallery. The couple of guys that run this and do all the art, we have their art hanging in our house. We have their art with us on the road. I mean, it is phenomenal. And finally, I'm getting to my number one favorite town in North America. And if you didn't guess the cover of this presentation, yes, it was taken in Mahone Bay. A colorful arts town, the best of the best. Population is about 1,000, so you don't have to be a big city. I mean, Joanne's Deli Market and Bake Shop is probably one of the best retail stores I've ever seen. It's part indoors, it's part outdoors. I mean, this is it towards Halloween. By the way, Mahone Bay does a scarecrow festival that's out of this world. But look at that. And it's got Marilyn Monroe up there on the roof. But just absolutely, have you ever seen a market like this? It's just phenomenal. And it's this way all year. But in this downtown, look at their shops, the color, the benches, the beautification, the blade signs, the signage. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And every time I go to Halifax or anyway, I have to make a special trip to Mahone Bay. I mean, look at the landscaping, look at the color. You can see the common thread through this whole thing, this whole presentation. And another one next to the Salt Box Gallery is this one. This is Northern Sun Gallery and Gifts, and we have a lot of their art there. I love the color scheme with the flowers, even match the sandwich board with the purples. Just a fantastic gallery. And then in October is the Scarecrow Festival, and you cannot believe how incredible it is. And yes, here is that cover shot that I used. I mean, this is as you're approaching Mahone Bay. So this whole area is just phenomenal. And with that, what tops your favorite Canadian list? I'd love to hear from you. Now, remember, we haven't been in every single town, every single village in Canada, but this list is just epic. And by the way, I didn't want to just put 10 towns, because when we go to town, well, what is there to see on the way there? Like to Tobermory, or if you're going to Nelson, British Columbia. And that's why sometimes, or Gros, Morne, adding in Woody Point, Cowhead, you know, and when we were at Gros, Morne, we stayed in Corner Brook, another town that we stayed in that we just loved. And so here is that list. So thank you so much. See you next month.